What's up, y'all? It is Tasha. I am back with another video, another review of Married at First Sight. So thank you so much for joining me. Y'all know the drill. If you are new here, welcome. Take a moment to hit that subscribe button, like, comment below in the comment section. If you are not new, y'all know how it goes down here on a Wednesday night / Thursday morning with Married at First Sight. I'm going to give it a go again of trying to record as the show is going and in between the commercials, because that did help me a little bit last week. So we're going to give it another go this week and see what happens. So let's jump right into the episode, y'all, because they already be long enough. Okay. So episode opens and it is 6 weeks left until decision day. And this episode will see the couples see their family and friends for the first time since the wedding. So basically we'll go through all the housewarmings. So the episode opens with Olajuwon cooking breakfast. Oddly enough, Lindsay is trying to feed Mark something nasty. Steve got sushi, a little pooper scooper because he ain't touching the poop. And Michael was leaving the home in the wee hours of the morning while Jasmina was still snoozing. And then the scene cuts and I see Alyssa on my TV screen and I'm like, been there, done that. Why is she even getting any type of TV time? But they have to, replay of how they made their decision last week. Luckily, we didn't have to hear her say anything. They just showed her. But they did show Chris as well. He says the most important metric in marriage is trying. And the more you try, the more you can get past things. And he wants to be with someone who really wants him for him. And that was not the case with old girl. So therefore, he had to bounce, We then see Noy. She's working from home while her house husband cooks breakfast and bother her as she's trying to, work hard for her paycheck. He says he wants to, do what he can since finding out that Noy isn't comfortable with him being between jobs. And I'm like, Steve, most adults aren't necessarily comfortable with people being between jobs and there not being a real plan. So that's not anything that's abnormal or should be shocking to you, sir. You're a grown man. And it kind of kills me. He keeps saying in between job because he really acts like he don't want to get a job. So you're not necessarily in between jobs. You're trying to figure out what you want to do and you really have no interest of getting a job right now. It's kind of how it's portraying to us. He tells us that being a full-time picture of himself isn't picking up a full-time job. And I take that as, i.e., it ain't making the coins that he needed to make. But he seems to be okay with that. All right. He says he still wants to do his part for the marriage. And I'm just like, so Steve, what is that going to be? And then they talk about kind of what they want to do in preparation for their upcoming housewarming. He does talk to her about how she felt about him being self-employed. And he says he didn't know that she felt that way. And she's like, well, I'm thinking long term about kids. And he's like, well, I wasn't aware of that. And I'm like, but you want to have kids and y'all have talked about that. Kids are expensive. Even before they get here, they are expensive. So how could you not put two and two together that, hello, she grew up real poor. You talk about wanting to have kids. You ain't really got no stable job. That's going to put her right back in the environment that she grew up in, that she's afraid. Like, Steve, come on now. You smart enough. Cut it out. So he says he's using this time to further develop himself. And again, as he talks, he's still so vague in the way that he's speaking. And I think that's where my concern lies. And it seems like that's where Noy concerns lie, is that he's just, if you got a plan, somebody need to know what that plan is. Because he act like it's top secret mission, secret security. I don't know what it is. But if you do have a long-term plan with this self-employment, just say what it is so she can then feel comfortable with the plan that's being made. Noy says, she isn't sure if she sees any action behind those words. And I'm like, my point exactly. We then see Olajuwon working out, and then he's meeting up with one of his friends that is already married and has a family. He tells his friend that Katina really reminds him of himself because she can have a really wild side, but she's, a little bit more reserved because she's a female. Because females can't be wild, Olajuwon? Okay. He tells his friend, of course, that they hadn't, done the do. And the friend says this is the first time he's seen Olajuwon nervous about having sex with someone. So maybe she is the one. And I'm like, that says a lot about you, Olajuwon, or Isaac. That says a lot about you, sir. He then tells his friend that the first time she went to the store, because the friend asked about red flags, he said, yo, the first time she went to the store, she was gone for 2 hours and she only came back with bread and water. And I'm like, Olajuwon, are you being sarcastic in this moment? Because if Katina was gone for 2 hours and came back with bread and water, she was not just at the grocery store. She was out somewhere else doing either some self-care, hanging out with her girls, doing something to get a break from you for those 2 hours. Okay. She said that her excuse was, when he asked about it, is that, you know, she hasn't bought for 2 people, so she's just not used to that. Olajuwon acted like he wasn't buying it, but his friend is like, man, you just need to really stop overthinking it. And I'm not gonna lie, you do expect a lot. So I'm glad his friend was being completely honest and transparent with him. And he says, you know, you're just gonna have to take her for who she is. That's what you have to do with people, take them for who they are. We then see Mark meet up with his best friend. He says that things are going well, and this is really the first time his significant other has helped him with things that is on his plate. And when he said that, I was like, but isn't this the very thing you were kind of complaining about last week, of she was a little bit too much and overbearing and just kind of letting you work at your own pace? Like, I'm confused. Do you like it or do you don't like it, Mark? Like, make your mind up and let us know. He says that the first impression with her, he was a bit unsure because, you know, she says some things out loud that makes him feel uncomfortable. So they give us a little montage of, you know, Lindsay having diarrhea of the mouth. And then he tells his friend, you know, about her getting into it with Olajuwon on the plane. And he does tell us, he was like, I was counting in my head like the amount of passes that he was giving her truly before he got upset. So now we know for sure, as if we didn't already know, that Lindsay was the culprit of the whole thing, and then turn around and try to play victim. Like, why is everybody mad at me? Why is he acting like I was just playing? No, you weren't playing. You was getting on people's nerves. Okay. And he says that he just doesn't think she is self-aware. And I'm like, let me just confirm that for you, Mark. She is not self-aware about what she does or what she says or how she acts towards people. She's not. She thinks she can say and do what she wants to do with no consequences. But he says he really wants these moments to stop happening so he can really get to know her. His friend says he doesn't think Mark was ready to be the reserved person in the relationship. And I can agree with that, because, I mean, we first heard of Mark the Shark like he was just going to be this party guy. But I think because Lindsay one-upped him, he's like, I can't be Mark the Shark and she out here being Jaws terrorizing everybody around here. Like, I got to pull back. So I get it, Mark. But he says it is a turnoff in a relationship. And if he was experiencing this in a past relationship, then he would just be out. So we'll see what happens, y'all. So it's now day 11 of marriage. We see Michael show up to one of his sister's house to catch her up on how things are going. And he really wants to get her feedback on how he can improve, because he's like, I know my sister won't hold back and she'll kind of tell me like it is. So he says the wedding was beautiful. And then, of course, they fly out to PR and everything is still good. Conversation is going well. And he's like, okay, this may be it. And then, of course, we pumped the brakes because they had their first conflict, in like day 3 of the whole group conflict discussion that really should not have been an argument between the two of them anyway. But he tells her, you know, at the meeting with Pastor Cal, they decided to start fresh. And his sister has to remind him, you know, you're still a stranger to her. She still does not know you. She's a very strong woman, and she may be trying to be vulnerable, which is not comfortable for her. So you just have to give her some time. You don't know her past, what she's dealt with, you know, what kind of baggage she has and things like that. So she is giving him some good advice. He asks, you know, what he should do. His sister says, you know, she needs to trust that you have got this, but that's going to come with time because she does not know you. So you just have to wait until she feels more comfortable. But in the meantime, essentially just continue to show up and do what you're supposed to do and not lie, Michael. You know, just try that. We then see Chris moving his things back into his home, and he FaceTimes his mom to tell her, you know, he ended the marriage because he hasn't talked to a family or friends since then. You know, he says this is really hard because he felt like she really wanted him to be married, of course, longer than he wanted to be married, because she's always wanted him to be married. And we know he's only wanted to get married in the past few years. So he hates that he is back here again. He tells her, you know, that the 10 days were not great and it was bad since the wedding night. She didn't want to stay in the hotel room with him. She walked away from every conversation, kept saying that she felt robbed because, you know, she didn't get the guy that she wanted. And Chris was like, we all felt, you know, we're going to feel robbed in some kind of way. You're not going to get exactly what you asked for, and you don't know who you're going to get. You just got to be kind of open-minded and willing to try. His mom says, well, you were robbed, because it sounded like she just wanted 15 minutes of fame. And I said, there you go, mama. I agree 1000%. Chris says he feels every day, the more he thinks about it, that she just really tried less and less. And pretty much that they've gotten divorced faster than any couple in Married at First Sight history. So his mom says, you know, she was just trying to get out of this without looking bad. And mama, don't worry about that, because she looks terrible in these streets. So she did not get out of here without looking bad. And then mom says, you know, she probably did you a favor, because you don't want to spend decades with somebody like that. And I'm like, Miss Chris mama, you better speak them words of encouragement into your son, okay? Because he need to be with nobody like Alyssa in the beginning. Chris says it'll take some time for the frustration and disappointment to go, but he believes he will be better for his next relationship. We then see Katina meets with one of her girlfriends come over to her and Olajuwon's apartment. The friend asks what were her first impressions at the wedding, and she was like, you know, it's just so much going on, but I thought he was cute. And the friend was like, so what about the whole garter thing when he did the whole Magic Mike dance? And she was like, you know, it was a bit much, but I like it. And I'm like, Katina, that little bit of ratchet that we all got inside of us, I knew you was gonna like it. Now, for me, I could be a little ratchet too. That was a little embarrassing. I didn't like the whole dance situation. And we saw a few extra clips tonight, and I could have done without that for the rest of my life. She says she doesn't really have to worry about him carrying on a conversation. And the friend was like, you telling me when we met with him the next day, he just kept talking and rambling and rambling. She was like, we probably were able to ask him like 5 questions, and he just kept going with a bunch of fluff. And that's what he does. He just talks about anything. So the friend was like, I'm just not sure if he was nervous, so that's why he kept talking, or if he kept talking because he didn't want to answer any of our questions. And I'm thinking more of the latter, sis. He can try to blame it on the ADHD if he want to. But I'm thinking he think if I just keep talking, they won't want to ask me no more questions, because it's just going to make me talk even longer. So they'll just give up and just be like, whatever, he was fine. And then the friend brings up that Olajuwon shared at that brunch that he had never dated a black girl. And I said, this now makes that mother-daughter combo, it makes all the sense in the world right now. And it makes the sense as to why he has a little bit of an ego with him, and how he thinks he can just pull all these women. Because, no offense to my white viewers, white women sometimes get a little bit more excited about a light-skinned, black, muscular-looking man than us regular black chicks. Like, Olajuwon ain't really nothing special in our eyes, but for a white girl who wants to date a black guy, but not, you know, black, not like Tay Diggs, you know, Morris Chestnut black, but they want somebody that's just a little more swirly. That's Olajuwon. So I'm sure they were like just falling all over him, which is why he thinks he has no problem getting women. When for black women, Olajuwon, you a little basic. Somebody had to say it. So the friend is like, you know, that's really concerning to me. I'm worried about it. And Katina is just like, no, I'm not. You know, I've spent the last 2 weeks with him, so we've gotten over that. And I'm like, okay, the last 2 weeks you've gotten up. Okay. And then she tries to clear it up and tells us that, so I'm the first black person he had a relationship with. He's not that he's, you know, dated at all. But has Olajuwon really been in any relationship? Because I think he just been, you know, out here in these streets. So, Katina, and you take up for your man. By all means, do what you got to do. But I'm going to need it to make sense, as I need everything else around here to make sense. And that just don't make sense. And then it even made it even more clearer, if y'all remember, at that brunch. And the friend said, when Olajuwon said he wanted to try something new, we didn't get the context at that time when he said that this is the first black girl he's dated. We didn't get that context. We just heard the friend saying, we heard Olajuwon saying he wanted something new, and the friend's like, what you mean something new? This is a marriage. This ain't just, dating somebody. Now it all makes sense as to why he said that. Because are you talking about something new, like dating a black girl instead of a white girl? Like, I'm not shocked. I'm a bit disappointed because Olajuwon, you are a black man. I don't care what it is that you're mixed with. You are a black man. Katina, all I got to say is you better watch out for Becky with the good hair. Keep your eyes open. So we then see all the couples preparing for their housewarmings by doing some shopping. Michael says he really just wants him and Jasmina to have some fun since they've really struggled a bit. So while they're shopping for food, he kind of plays with some lobsters and he's like, here's me, here's you walking down the aisle. And she actually laughs, which is very refreshing to see Jasmina laugh for once. The girl who wants her 15 minutes of fame then shows up on my TV and she's meeting with her friend that was not at the wedding. She says, you know, that Chris physically wasn't my type. And then the friend says, you know, well, it's kind of unfortunate what his friends and family, you know, kind of had to say about him. And those things really didn't show him in a good light. And I'm like, your friend is a B. So anything she said to you, you can't trust. So if you didn't know she was a liar, now seeing this back on TV, I hope it's clear she's a liar. The friend asks if they had any deep conversation, and she says, no, it was a small resort, and if he wanted to talk, he knew where to find me. You mean every time he tried to talk and you walked away and you hated him and he was being aggressive? And I'm going to get up right now because I don't like where this conversation is going, and I'm a nice person. Is that... The friend asks if she is okay with her decision, and she's like, well, it wasn't my decision. And she replays some of the conversation they had that day and says, you know, she told him she wanted to start with a clean slate to see where it goes, which we know is a lie. But then she tells this friend that this man did not put in any effort. And production immediately rolls that beautiful bean footage and shows us the receipts of all the times Chris said he would go at her pace. He just wants you to feel comfortable. He apologized when he did not do anything wrong. Like, girl, you are a straight up liar. Like, bold-faced liar, because you're lying about things that have been recorded and it's playing on national TV. It's not a debate between he said, she said. You said it. Girl. She says, they ask her, you know, what's next? And she says, you know, she'll probably move to Texas so that she can find her cowboy, but she's going to talk to her psychic about it first. And I'm like, maybe your psychic will tell you can go to hell. I don't know. Maybe she'll give you some good advice. Jasmina then meets up with one of her girlfriends and says, you know, Pastor Cal has helped them start over, but it hasn't really helped with their communication because they really haven't had any deep conversations. She gets advice from a friend who is engaged and has been with her partner for 8 years because she's like, I think she'll give me some sound advice. I'm just not going to say anything. Jasmina then tells her, you know, he used a tone with her during the honeymoon that she didn't like. And the friend says, you don't like any tone. Shocking. Shocking. Which is why I have always said I need to know what she's considering aggressive from Michael. I need to know. Production, where is that footage? I need to know what it is, because not saying that her feelings are invalid, but Jasmina strikes me as the type of the minute somebody raised their voice an octave, she's saying that somebody's yelling at her. And it maybe it's based on, you know, the way she grew up in her childhood. And now that I don't know, but her friend saying this is like, this girl has known you for some years. So that's telling us, if she says you don't like any tone, that you've said this type of thing before, even when somebody was not using a tone with you. So it ain't making you look that credible, Jasmina, but you know, we'll see. The friend just tells her, you know, that you just have to communicate. Cause of course, Jasmina tells her about, you know, him not telling her about the female roommate. So So she's like, you just got to communicate. You can't get better at communicating without communicating. So you just got to do it. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. She tells her that, of course, more conflicts will arise because it's just a part of being in a relationship and you just got to work through it. Jasmina then tells her also that Michael just doesn't like to admit when he's wrong. And the friend is like, so sounds like you. If one thing, I'm thankful for the friend for being honest. And I'm just like, I said the same thing when they were on the honeymoon. Y'all arguing, but y'all acting exactly the same towards one another. But yet you mad at the other person. So next we see Steve is spending Noy's money on, some ring pops for the party. And all the other couples are decorating their apartments, to get ready. And I know Steve got a little bit of money saved away, y'all. It's just fun for me to act like he's dead broke with no job. Like Tommy off of Martin, he ain't got no job. Steve ain't got no job, okay? Lindsay and Mark are having a pizza party as their housewarming. And I actually think it's really cute where they just have all the ingredients and they have the dough and the guests are able to make their own pizza. And then, of course, we can kind of taste each other pizza. I was like, oh, that's a really cute idea, Lindsay. I do like that. Lindsay tell, Mark's friends that she's been feeling a little bit overwhelmed because she feels like Mark has felt overwhelmed with everything that's been going on. And it's like, as expected, the man's gone through a lot in these past few weeks. Mark asked him for some advice from Lindsay's friends, basically about how to best communicate with her and how to reel in her mouth when it gets a little too reckless. Her friend says, tell her in the moment how he feels so he does not keep it bottled up, and then it says something that he regrets. Mark friends then tell Lindsay that, usually if you were just dating him, I would tell you that he'll probably want to spend the night the first night and then he'll want to move in and y'all get married. But y'all already skipped to the marriage. So, y'all should be fine. Overall, pretty boring party. Steve and Noy are now getting ready for their party and they're making some homemade dishes from both of their cultures for their housewarming. All the friends start to show up and begin to eat. Noy says, she was really open about the experience when one of the friends asked, if he looked the way that she expected him to. She was like, she kind of had no expectations. We find out that they did give each other wedding gifts and they were the same wedding gifts. They actually gifted each other journals, which I thought was so cute of themselves. And then the friends asked about kids and they said they haven't decided on the time frame, but we all know Noy seems to be stuck on having these 3 kids for whatever reason, and it's a hard stop for her. He really talks about her not kind of being open-minded in that situation, and that's really where his issue lies. Steve then goes off to talk with her friends, and they ask, what the future looks like for them. He says, the kids thing is a big thing because it's, having kids is really important to me. And then Steve's friends on the other side are asking about, what issues they've experienced because they're like, everything can't be going good. So let us know what's happening. She then talks about the concerns about him not working because she's like, I've just never not had a full-time job. So basically, Steve not having a job, it really concerns me. And she's thinking, long term and wondering if Steve will actually show up for her. The friend then kind of throws Steve under the bus a little bit and says that, Steve has a vast, network and, the company I work for, is always hiring. And Noy was like, I think that maybe was supposed to give her some reassurance of he has this network and my company is always hiring. So just whenever he's ready, a job is just going to be ready and willing. But it does the opposite for Noy and kind of does the same for me of where if you have this vast network, what's the problem? Either this vast network should help you fit into a job that meets your needs and what you want to do, or they should be able to help you find the avenues to make your little entrepreneur gig be successful. Like, one of the two should be happening, Steve, is all I'm trying to say. Her friend talks about, her not wanting to be the breadwinner. And he's like, I'm just wondering if we can, find some other way and make some other Steve, we need to see the Carfax at this point. At this point, I need to see the Carfax. What is the future looking like? He just keeps saying he can take care of everything And it's just disheartening when your partner just doesn't believe in you. First of all, she's been your partner for 2 weeks. So it's not like she's seen this vision since it was in the pits of your soul. She don't really know what it is you're talking about and what you want to do and how this is going to support her and y'all's kids in the future, Steve. I don't understand why that's so hard to understand. And if they've talked about it, then maybe let us know that y'all talked about it in private and is what it is. But it doesn't seem that way. And it doesn't seem like he ever wants to really spell it out when the cameras are there. Or what the heck does the future look like? What can you do to provide this woman with some type of security, reassurance that everything will be okay, other than your word of everything will be okay, Steve? We need something else. All right, so it is now day 14 of marriage, and it's time for Michael and Jasmina. They're having a taco party. I feel like every season somebody has a taco party. Michael is mixing the drinks, and he's putting a lot of liquor in there, so it looks like folks are going to be a little bit tipsy. They both say they're glad they kind of got over the hump with Pastor Cal before they got around their family and friends. Michael's sister shows up. A couple of Jasmina girlfriends show up. And then I was like, Michael, where your friends? You ain't got no friends? Where your friends coming to the housewarming party? And then they kind of mentioned that it was only like 5 o'clock in the day, so it was a little bit early. So I'm going to give his friends a little bit of a pass for that. They play charades with basically Michael and Jasmina, playing out everything. They both say that they're very competitive. Michael ends up losing, but they can both end up just laughing it off. They start to talk about how things have been going, and they, share that they've had some ups and downs, but Pastor Cal basically came and whipped them back into shape, and things have been okay since then. Jasmina goes off to talk with Michael's sister and tells her that, she really likes him and they have a lot in common. And I was totally surprised because, again, I don't get the vibes that Jasmina really likes Michael like that. But she says she does. Michael talks to her friends and asks about, what to do when they have their next conflict and really how to get back in her space without her feeling overbearing. Her friends say to just be patient and listen, ask her questions about, what exactly set her off and then work from there. They say Jasmina can really let things build and she will basically go back and forth with you until the cows come home. His sister tells Jasmina that, it's important for her brother to be next to a strong woman because he really needs that. And I'm like, yes, he does. But sometimes as Black women, we tired of being the strong one all the time. Ooh, child, the struggle. And then Jasmina just says she kind of needs to stop getting in her head so much and just let go of some of her stubbornness. Next, we see it's time for Olajuwon and Katina's party, and their friends are arriving. Y'all know this is the party couple, so they're going to get the party started with shots. Katina's friend said from the second day they met him, she ain't like him, and they going to need to talk. And I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. I ain't mad at it. Then they start showing her having conversations with her friends, sitting at the table. He's kind of talking with his friend at the bar. They're literally like 10, 15 feet from one another. I hate when they do this as if y'all can hear each other's conversation. Like, what are we doing here? The apartment ain't that big, Married at First Sight. What are we doing? But his friend asks, how she's fitting in with the family. He's like, we a partying family, so she fits right on in. Her friend asks about the intimacy, and she says, they're focused more on the emotional connection right now, and she thinks he needs that a little bit more than she does, which basically boils down to, I'm ready to get it in, but he ain't. So I'm just waiting for him to make a move. Her friends ask him, how is she at being a wife, cooking, cleaning, doing all that stuff. He says, she has effort. And I'm like, okay, Elijah, Mama, what are you doing? What are you doing? They tell him that, she is really trying. So, don't put so much pressure on her because they know that she's really trying and putting forth the effort. She talks with his friend and he tells her that, Olajuwon actually praises her a lot. Olajuwon thinks that she is actually holding back and wants her to open up a little bit more. And then his friend kind of tells, his friend tells Katina that to just be patient with him, and especially when he starts to elevate, like don't get amped with him because he just needs somebody to calm him down. So her friends seem to think after talking with him, they feel a little bit more comfortable. And I'm like, that's y'all business. We then see Noy and Steve. It's more of like camera footage from inside the apartment that's just, up in the spaces and not an actual camera crew. As Steve is kind of telling us what is happening. So Steve tells us that Noy said that she was going to cook dinner for them since he's been doing a lot of cooking. So she was going to do it that night. So apparently she needs gluten-free noodles. He wants regular noodles. So he said he went to like put the noodles in a pot or something. I don't know if he turned it on or what. And then went into the bedroom for something and then came back. When he came back, I guess the noodles still weren't cooking. So he turned them on and she's still in the kitchen cooking her food as well. So I think he goes off and does something else and he comes back and then now his noodles are overcooked. So essentially, I guess Noy was like, I'm not eating them. You were cooking them. So I'm not responsible for watching them on the stove. So she just let them overcook, which was very petty of you, Noy, if I may say so myself. But then we see her kind of getting upset. She packs up some stuff, looks like in a backpack, and then takes the dog and she ends up leaving. And Steve says she just doesn't say anything. She doesn't say where she's going. He's trying to call her, text her, do everything, and she is not responding. So, no. Noy, what is going on? I know you ain't getting mad over some noodles. Please tell me I'm wrong. All right, y'all, let's just finish up this train wreck, okay? So we then see Steve waking up in the apartment alone. He doesn't know where Noy stayed the previous night because she's still not speaking to him despite him reaching out. And I'm just thinking, girl, you can't be this mad over some noodles. Like, are we being punk right now? You can't be this mad over some noodles. If you are this mad over some noodles, you don't need 3 kids. Okay, Noy? We then see later that day, she comes back with the dog and tells us that she went back to her apartment and she's really trying to process how to address the situation because she doesn't want to say something she'll regret. Steve tells her that, she just left him hanging and they're married. And then he sees a social media post that seems to be directed at him. So we see the quote and it says, "Learning to say nah, this just isn't good enough will enhance your life greatly. You're allowed to say this is simply not enough for me. You're allowed to have a vision for yourself, your life, your relationships, and refuse to settle for anything less. Say no often." So he asked, of course, if this was directed towards him. She was like, yeah, pretty much. And he's like, so do you understand how that looks? I follow you. I have friends and family that follow you and they start to see this. I'm going to start getting the questions of what is going on. He's exactly right. She then says that something he said was triggering to her and rude, and it really hurt her feelings because this was like one of the first times she cooked for him. Maybe I was looking away from the screen and typing. I don't know what he said that could have been so triggering while they are cooking noodles to make her this upset, but please let me know in the comments below what the heck he said. Steve talks about healthy communication in a relationship because, she just didn't say anything, and that's pretty much not acceptable. And I'm like, Steve, if you just had a good full-time job, or at least you was bringing in some regular income, you'll be the full package. Because this whole communication thing, from what I've seen thus far of how he gives advice to the other men and how he communicates with Noy, I'm here for all the open communication, okay? She says she wants him to handle things how he would, and that's just not her. And I'm like, but girl, you being childish because all this is over some goddamn on pasta. Okay, if you were that upset and you need a space, you should have just said that. We then see Chris and he tells us that they're going to be meeting up with all the other couples. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to see Alyssa on my TV screen again. Okay, but they're going to go bowling and they'll have to, of course, tell everyone that they decided to get a divorce. They all meet up and Noy is still feeling some kind of way about this pasta. So she's like, it's hard to, be around everybody else because, we're still not completely over it. Girl, that's what married folks got to do. You got to fake it till you make it when you're around people. When y'all get back to the car, y'all can close the door and go back to not speaking to each other. It is what it is, Noy. Get used to it. So we see them all get ready to bowl. We see Olajuwon finally got himself a haircut. He let that whole mohawk situation go. Thank you, baby Jesus. They then ask about Alyssa and Chris. And before they can even get into anything or anybody makes a comment, Lindsay has to share that Marcus had his first taco because, she's always just shoving food in his mouth. And then, of course, she says something inappropriate that I heard it, couldn't grab it because I was typing. I didn't want to rewind it. And at this point, what is new with Lindsay saying inappropriate things? They didn't talk about leaving the toilet seat up versus leaving the toilet seat down. And Lindsay has to, again, take over the conversation and tell us, as a nurse, the water spray 6 feet and all this lovely stuff. And Jasmina's like, can you just calm down and let him finish? Because Steve was in the middle of a thought and he couldn't even get it out before Lindsay just overshadows and starts talking over him. And I'm just like, is there ever a time you don't have to be the center of attention, Lindsay? Like, is there ever a time? So Alyssa and Chris finally show up and it is awkward. And Lindsay asks about everyone's visit with Pastor Cal. O said he learned to talk with Katina, not at her. Katina says, and I'm just great. Okay, girl. Michael and Jasmina, basically, Jasmina says Pastor Cal ripped them a new one. And then here comes Lindsay of, well, you can't have intimacy without having conflict first, because when you have conflict and learn to respect each other's boundaries, then you can have true intimacy. Lindsay, nobody asked you for what you thought was this profound quote at this very moment. Nobody asked for it. You don't have to say everything that you think of. Okay. It's just nobody asked for it. Katina then rolls her eyes and then she basically asks Katina why. And Katina's like, girl, not to talk to me. We ain't even friends. Just leave me alone. And then we get to see Chris and Alyssa. Chris is kind of asking her, so like, you want to talk or me? And she's like, you. And of course, because she can play victim over here. So Chris tells them, they decided to get a divorce. And Steve is like, can't exactly say I did not see this coming. And again, Stevie Wonder could have saw this coming. Everybody knew this was coming from day one of marriage. Soon as she walked down before they even walked down the aisle together, I said this pairing was not going to work. So we all knew this was coming. I'm not going to even comment on the crying white girl who is a good person. I'm just not going there. So Lindsay then tells Mark that his whole demeanor has changed and he didn't like her. And he says he didn't like her saying anything to Katina. And Lindsay says, well, you just sat there while this woman is sitting here acting like a child. And what did you want me to do? And Mark is just like, leave it alone. Because of the history between the two of you, I wish you could just leave it alone. And I can't blame the man. Like, Lindsay, so show some form of growth here. Like in that moment, you could have just left it alone. Like you could have seen Katina do it and then you could have just left it alone. Like show some type of growth that you just can let things roll off of your back, sometimes. And then here she comes throwing in his face, how she's helped him. And I'm like, now, Lindsay, you kind of took the lead on wanting to do all of this, acting like Mama Bear. So then don't come throwing this in this man's face of, oh my God, I've helped you do this, I've helped you do that. And then here you are with me, girl. So then she says, go call your mom. And then he says, you go have another drink. And he says, I just really can't fall in love with someone that just, behaves like that. Mark tells her in the moment he doesn't like. So we see with this situation, because we know Mark had just asked her friends kind of how to deal with her and handle this. And they was like, in the moment, just tell her about it and don't let things build up. So he's done exactly that. And of course, she did not receive that well and can't handle it. We then see a producer go in the bathroom with her. And she says, I'm done because my husband is an idiot. He's not a strong man. He can't speak up because he is in crisis. She says she accepts him for all his flaws and he makes $60,000 a year selling gym membership. And she's going to show him how to be a big badass boy. And I'm just like, Lindsay, this is the type of person I would not be able to even be friends with, because she's the type of person that you will tell your secrets and your business to. And then the minute she gets upset with you, she's ready to tell the whole world about those same things that you have told her in confidence. Like, Lindsay, this is disgusting. So he is trying to we see that Mark is trying to talk to Chris about it. And he's like, I just can't catch a break. And I just really can't be with someone that behaves like this, because she just always has to have the last word. She always has to interject herself. She just can't let things go. She then says that this man is a loser, and once she's all out, she's all out. And I'm just like, is she bipolar? Does she have mental health? Like, what is really happening at this point? Because at this moment, she then starts just yelling all these disgusting things from the bathroom about Mark, and he can at this point hear her yelling as he's talking with Chris, and Chris is like, that's her, and he's like, yeah. So with her yelling all this stuff, she then talks about needing an orgasm, and I'm like, girl, how did we get here? How did we get here? It is just disgusting, and I honestly hope they are up next for divorce, because while you will have hot and cold in a marriage, like this, hot and cold to this extreme, and for these things to, like some of the smallest things, to set her off in the way that it does, like, girl, even when it comes to thinking about having kids, you know how much kids gonna get on your nerves? Are you just gonna pop off at your kids every time they get on your nerves? Like, I just don't get it. And I don't get how she's going to try to make him feel safe again, or safe long term, if they decide to stay together, because you just really throwing out things like this and information like this and just saying some of these disgusting things. Like, you no longer make it a safe place for your husband to be able to share things with you. And that is a problem, Lindsay. Your mouth, I know your daddy told us, but I didn't know it was going to be to this extent. Like, your mouth is reckless, and it is a true problem that you need to fix. It's not okay that you are just like this, and it's just how you are, and you just say what you mean, and you just keep it real. No, ma'am. At some point in time, everybody has to grow up and be responsible for the words that come out of their mouth, and think about them before they actually exit the hole in your face. Okay? All right, y'all, that was the end of the episode. We will be back here, same time, same place next week. Please drop down in the comments. Let us discuss this episode and tell me you guys' thoughts. Till then, catch you in the next one. Peace.